Don't be surprised by the voice. It's not Bruce. It's not Michael. I've stolen the keys to the podcast. So today, it's Evan Horowitz from the Center for State Policy Analysis, and I'm joined by Aaron O'Brien, a professor of political science at UMass Boston, one of the keenest observers of Massachusetts politics. Aaron, it's fantastic to have you here for my first podcast recording.
I gotta be honest, I feel special.
You are
Thank
special.
you.
I wouldn't have asked you to come if you weren't special. Well, why would I consider such a thing?
This is great, and there's keys. Who knew to the podcast?
Yeah, well, they're secret. Don't tell anybody. So usually, when I have people on, it's sort of like, let's talk about this crazy thing that's happening. And we could do that. Like, this was the end of the session. It was crazy. But actually not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about a crazy thing that isn't happening, which is to say the race for governor of Massachusetts, which usually would be a thing we were talking about a lot. And instead is a thing that, it's August. And we pretty much know who's going to be governor. I feel bad even saying it. So maybe I'll ask you that. How should we even refer to the attorney generals? Presumptive governor, possible? How in your head, how do you do it?
It helps that ahead by 30 in the polls against in all likelihood, a Massachusetts GOP that is unelectable in Massachusetts. So I don't. You're calling the facts when you say it feels like a foregone conclusion. You're not putting your thumb on the scale.
Well, it's hard because, as a former journalist, I don't want to say this, and I'm not supposed to say this, but, it feels disingenuous not to just say,
as empiricist,
yes,
she, and barring something wild, she is going to be the governor.
Yeah, and that's, it's not how it's supposed to look in August. I mean, 4 years ago, we had, Jay Gonzalez in a semi-competitive race with Bob Massey and Sadie Warren, and 8 years ago, we had a ton of people, like Martha Coakley and Steve Grossman and Don Burr. Usually, the Democratic primary is crowded and heated, and not this. Or does it strike? It strikes me as strange. Does it strike you as strange?
I'm from Ohio, and I think some of this is Massachusetts. Massachusetts doesn't matter in the presidential contest. Yes, they count up our electoral votes, and yes, they come to us for money, but we don't get courted. So,
because they know who we're going to dance with.
Exactly. And so when I think of this from a comparative angle, I think Massachusetts is we like having these competitive governor races because we don't get to do this
This is our race.
Right.
If we lose this, we lose everything.
We know what's going to happen in the Senate. This is why, Markey Kennedy people got excited about, because we have so many foregone conclusions that it feels like a race. It feels like, air quote, real politics. So I don't think it's that strange, but I think those of us, self-included, who care about politics and are interested, do feel something missing this summer. The Labor Day deadline is no Labor Day deadline because we know who's in all likelihood going to win, and we feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah, so that's the primary thing and the general thing. We could skip ahead, but so part of it is just the horse race, as you lay it out. It would be great to have a competitive race to talk about because we want to talk about it because we don't get to talk about presidential. But there's more to it than that, right? It's not just the horse race. Campaigns matter. They matter for candidates. They matter for constituents. They matter for voters. They matter for the future of the Commonwealth. So part of it also is what do we lose, policy-wise or, from the fact that this isn't happening? So let's just kind of go through it. I just want your thoughts on this. Because you can say actually you think we lose that, but it doesn't really matter. Or no, this is really a big deal. Okay, the first one is sort of trial by fire stuff. Campaigns expose things about candidates. And without a campaign, you don't expose things about candidates. I mean, the one I have in my head is robot Marco Rubio. These moments. Is that a real thing? Are we really missing out on that? Or is that not a real thing we shouldn't worry about?
It is. It's both, which is the worst answer ever. But it's both in that on the one hand, if we look at partisanship in a district, in a state, that usually we can predict outcomes in the campaign, air quotes, doesn't matter. But does it matter for these soft but important things like democracy, competitive elections, transparency? Yes, it does matter. And I think you're right. To kick the tires is important, to ask tough questions. That comes up when you've got individuals of your own party doing op research and pointing out policy differences. That matters. Voters should be exposed to that. And I think it matters particularly for this race, or the concern can be there twofold in this particular race, because it looks like Maura Healey, it is Maura Healey, and Jeff Deal doesn't want to debate. And so that's problematic. I have real concern of candidates not wanting to debate. And because the media is biased, air quotes, all those things, I have real concerns about that.
Because what? Because what do you miss out if there's no debate?
Well, you miss transparency. You miss voter. And yes, a lot of the debates are bad, okay? But they don't have to be that way. And you miss that exposure. You miss hearing Jeff Deal talk as a Trump Republican, saying really, anti-immigrant stuff, anti-driver's license and all those things. You miss that exposure. And even though not everyone hears it, a lot of people do. And so I think the question is, how can we have this governor's race and still ask those tough questions that actually get answered? And I have concerns that's not happening.
All right. So, I mean, you could imagine another fora where these questions do get asked, but like that's not happening either. So it's not just like a lack.
Right.
Okay, it could be a very competitive race, but candidates refuse to debate. That's not the situation.
Right.
There's no debate. Also, not tough questioning. Is there a question you have in your head? Like, wow, here's the thing that we really need to know that we're not going to find out.
I mean, as an empiricist, as someone who cares about small d democracy surviving, I have concerns about a Jeff Deal coming in and forwarding the mass GOP. Now, it's a long-term plan. He knows he's not going to win. He certainly didn't win against Elizabeth Warren. So I think the more exposure of the mass GOP going that way is important. That said, Maura Healey is well known to residents of Massachusetts. Those tires have been kicked.
So you feel that way? Because
yeah, I do.
She's well known as candidate for Attorney General and then as Attorney General. That's the same as being well known as candidate for governor, presumptive governor, future governor, or no?
It's not exactly the same, but it's somebody most voters know. She's not a total outsider. She has been vigilant against the Trump administration. When she ran as an outsider to begin with against Tolman, remember, way back?
Yeah.
And she did get tough questions from Sonia Chang-Diaz, even though Sonia Chang-Diaz had to, drop out, you know what I'm saying? But Sonia Chang-Diaz pushed Maura Healey on progressive policy. And we've seen a lot of that, a good liberal versus a progressive in Massachusetts. That particular frame didn't win in this race. And I think the fact that Maura Healey has been able to so consolidate support says something about the strength of her candidacy and perhaps that people like her policy, or they at least like her because they know she's been a fighter.
So in that sense, I mean, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it this way. You're suggesting like the lack of a campaign, right, or the lack of a contest is actually just a testament to her strength as a candidate.
Yeah.
Like it shows actually we don't have that many questions. And if we really had questions, there would be a competitive race.
Exactly. Somebody would get in there and win.
There isn't a competitive race because we don't have questions because people do know her and that's interesting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You stand
are
by
you
that?
buying it?
No, that's what I'm saying. So now that I've laid it out that way,
people.
now that I've laid it out that way, are you stand by that?
I do.
Or did it just come out of your mouth and now
I have notes and I wrote it down, so I stand by it. Well, I always think of the counterfactual, which is true, but I also think, like, what are we wanting for? Like, most of us find the national politic deeply problematic, deeply polarizing, not factual based, right? Do we want one of those races? Like, are we dying for a governor's race? Maybe the lack of a race speaks to the strength of her candidacy and not the same taste in Massachusetts for a national politic that most of us think is problematic, turns us off, and makes us worry about the future of this country. So
I kind of love this because what you're suggesting is like, my desire for a kind of trial by fire here is like totally misguided. Because
your words.
Fair enough. Because like it's a reflection of, well, what it would look like is what you see in campaigns all over the country, and those don't look great, right? If you look somewhere else for where there are competitive campaigns, it's not like you're saying, well, this is bringing out the best in candidates, the best in people, citizens are learning a lot. Like, what exactly am I pining for? What's the exemplar here for what I'm pining for in a competitive?
And the lesson then isn't we don't need competitive elections. The lesson is that this is really anomalistic that we're talking about because the concern of someone coming in who's never been vetted and just walking into office is concerning. I just don't think that's what's happening here in Massachusetts. And the GOP nominee is not electable. We've seen him run statewide against Elizabeth Warren. He's trying to build a Trump GOP long-term. That's part of his long-term game. But he's not electable. So, yeah, in some ways, I think this unique case that we don't want to overgeneralize from is good news for Massachusetts.
All right. Well, I'm not done trying to make this argument.
Right.
Like, you haven't won me over completely. So, like, let me make another point. I'll come at this another way.
It's nuanced.
All right. What about like honing policy stuff, right? If there were a debate, if there were a campaign, then there would be people saying, well, your healthcare policy, I'm making this up.
Yeah.
Your healthcare policy is garbage. It's lacking this. Your environmental policy is misguided. It benefits the wrong people. Your tax policy. And, it's not that the Healy campaign lacks these policies. You can go to the website. You can look at some of these policies. But there's nobody saying, like, this policy is inadequate or exaggerated, whatever it is. That we're missing that. Wouldn't it be good to? Isn't it important to get that? Don't we need to know that?
Yes, and that there were debates. Like Sonia Chang, I know Maura Healey didn't do as many as Chang Diaz wanted to do, but there were some debates that were pretty spicy between them that pushed on that difference between truly, air quotes, good liberal versus progressive. Some of that happened, and the Democratic base responded with, "We want Maura Healey."
That seems right, but also it was like really early. Like the number of people tuned into a debate.
So you want a campaign on your timeline?
On the full timeline. I want the full timeline. I want a campaign that goes through. Okay, the thing I would worry about is we get to January, and then people start asking, "Oh yeah, what is the first bill you're going to file? What is the actual top priority?" And and at that point, Healey and her team say, "Oh, we'll figure it out right now."
Right.
But when you get to January, when you're sworn in, it's emergency crisis appointment, emergency crisis appointment. It's not, "Oh, let's take a step back and figure it now." So I guess that's where I guess if I'm worried about something, or if what I want from this campaign is, let's solve some of those questions in advance. Let's figure out exactly what's going to happen. Let's hone some policies now so that when we start, they're ready. Those are arrows in the quiver. My metaphor is terrible.
But I don't disagree with that at all. But I think the point is that's what you want as a good political analyst, a journalist, a former journalist in your life, and you're a data guy, you're analytic. Most people don't watch politics. Most voters on January 1, even if she was totally vetted in all those debates and all that things that happened, they still wouldn't know what she was going to do on January whatever. So I think part of our critique here is, what do voters want? They're satisfied. The polls suggested they didn't get too excited about the other Democratic candidates, and they've coalesced around Maura Healey. And what do we want as full-time observers of politics? I think your concerns are merited. I just don't. I think they're merited in most cases. I just don't necessarily share them in this very unique
one. And it
one.
sounds like you're saying two things. Not just like voters are satisfied. That's why there isn't a big a big fight over this, but also you think voters will be satisfied. It's not like we'll get to some point and voters will wake up and say, "Oh no, what have we stumbled into here?" Right.
No. I think voters are satisfied by a known candidate. Again, if somebody walks in, the framers' concerns, some dark horse unknown gets the populace really excited and could hoodwink them. That's
totally
why we
theoretical.
Right.
Yeah.
I wasn't even doing that on purpose. But that sort of thing, it was a real framer's concern. And to your point, yes, they weren't wrong. Yeah. But I don't think Maura Healey is that particular person, because so much of what she's done as AG is well known. She ran as an outsider the first time. She has a national profile. I mean, journalists have looked into Maura Healey in great depth. So that's why I'm not as concerned about this one. But to be honest, I miss it. I too like the fireworks. I like all that stuff. But I'm just not as concerned long-term about this one.
I'll give you one last attempt here. And this didn't occur to me. I had a fascinating conversation with someone about this morning. And they said to me, it really would have been satisfying to fight for the first female governor of the state. Elected female governor. And to have her walk in, it's like bonkers. We thought we were going to fight for this. It was going to be the end of a movement. And instead, it's just the door's wide open.
I'm doing a shameless plug. I gave you a copy of my book when I came in. And one of the chapters is on women in politics in Massachusetts. We are so middle of the pack. We're worst in New England. I don't care how she gets in. Let her. Yeah, I think it's awesome that it's not that.
Well, I think that's one way to take it. It's amazing we don't have to fight to get over the finish line. But I didn't expect that.
Because when we have to fight on the national stage, we don't win. The top spot. So I'm not against that. But I do think there is one concern that I have. And that is, a top of the ticket race, right? There's obviously no presidential contest right now. And so when the top of the ticket is, a gubernatorial race that's very exciting, et cetera, that gets people to turn out in September and November for these down ballot races. We have really contested lieutenant governor race and AG race that's exciting and things like that. And so I think...
Some ballot questions?
Yes. And so not having a deeply contested governor's race is problematic for down ballot races in turnout.
Okay. I thought you were going to go the other way and say it creates room for people to think about these other races, right? Like you don't think there's a crowding out effect where, you'd be focused on the governor's race if there were a really competitive governor's race, but instead, I don't know why you'd want to, but you could really focus on the lieutenant governor's race where the stakes are super high. Right. And enough of me making fun of the state's lieutenant governor.
Well, but say, I think it's, and I'm making up this number, but do you want 50% turnout who haven't paid attention to the lieutenant governor and AG, or do you want 24% turnout who really has? Right? And I think we're going to be in a contest with incredibly low turnout, and maybe they are more informed about the lieutenant governor's race and the AG's race. But the cost is not having more turnout.
Some kind of democratic legitimacy, how many people are showing up, what do they care about? And
so
this is
do
true.
you value an informed but small electorate or a bigger, less knowledgeable electorate? And good arguments can be made on both sides, like you said, legitimacy. But it's the reason the popular kid wins in high school.
Yeah. Well, the ballot questions in general, like the theory behind ballot questions, is that you're polling citizens, you're polling voters to see if they believe in it. It's not like you're polling some small subset of dorky politics obsessed voters, which may be what we end up doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love dorky politics obsessed voters as like one of them myself. But
I was like, mirror?
It doesn't mean I want them deciding all the, ballot questions. Yeah.
There is something about, I mean, that's a whole debate, as you well know, but, you kick it to the populace usually when, the state house hasn't done anything. I'm thinking of like that nurses, the staffing.
Yeah, the nurse staffing question.
And then, it's problematic. They don't know as much. Well, the legislature will take it up. No, have they? Answer, no. So, those ballot questions. But I think there's real issues with ballot issues anyway that aren't as driven.
Independent of this question of whether we have a governor's campaign.
Right, our next session.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll talk about, there's plenty of time to talk about ballot questions, and since we won't have another one covering the governor's campaign, because there isn't one, we'll have even more opportunity to do this.
Right.
Okay, I'll keep going here. I'm never done. The other thing that I want to get answered that is just not going to get answered, I think, through this campaign is what happens to Baker Democrats? Okay, so I'll back up. And so we have had a Republican governor for 8 years, but we had a Republican governor who was, beloved is too strong, but supported by lots and lots of Democratic voters. There's a huge constituency of Democratic Baker supporters in this state. And one of the big open questions, it seems to me, you may disagree, for the future of the state is like, what happens to those voters? Where do they go? And I thought like we would get some insight into that through this year's governor's race. Seems like maybe not.
Well, I think we
there
will.
is an answer. Yeah.
They're not going to vote for Jeff Deal, right?
So yes. I think this is right. The odds that they break right and end up voting for, the current Massachusetts Republican candidate party seems really low. I think that the open question is like, is there a center?
Right. But I think that's a product of what the Mass GOP is doing. I don't think that's a product of whether or not we've got a really heated gubernatorial race. I mean, the two are related, obviously. But the Mass GOP had, first or third, depending on the day of the week, most popular governor in the U.S., and was a major factor in why he decided not to run because of their shift rightward. That is a huge, important story, and I think it matters quite a bit. Like the New England Republican, the Wells, the Bakers,
I thought you were going to go way back, the Rockefellers, not New England, but okay.
But that is, that's a constituency. A lot of people think it would be healthy for the polity if there were more of them. And so the Baker Democrats, who vote for Elizabeth Warren and vote for Charlie Baker.
Right, like that's not a made-up thing. That's
not at all.
A real thing, yeah.
Not being remotely facetious. That's a sign of a healthy polity in Massachusetts. I think that's a really good sign. But I think it's the Mass GOP that is disrupting that now by going the Trump way, not the problem of a not very competitive race. Their willingness to go... The Baker Democrats are willing to go to a place that neither the Democrats or the GOP is offering them. They don't have that choice anymore, and that's a story about the Republican Party.
So I thought there was at least some chance that they would have that choice this time, that somebody would come. Listen, if I knew a name, I would have been talking to that person and recommending it, because I think there's a huge lane for it. But somebody would come in and say, I stand for Baker Democrats, and I'm going to run as an independent, or I'm going to run the Democratic Party. I don't know where exactly I'm going to run.
And I think that person could win in the general. That person, but
how do they get out of the primary?
They could not get out of the Massachusetts. What's it? 9% of the electorate is registered as a Republican here. Yes, you can pull the ballot, that kind of stuff. But that's the concern here. I think, listen, it's a horrific idea to run for office as an independent. Never works. Stop. Don't do it. That said, hypothetical that we can never actually measure, Charlie Baker is the kind of guy who could have done it. Ironically, not get out of his own primary and then win against a Maura Healey, that's where I think some of the sexism and maybe homophobia, but more the sexism, I think, of Massachusetts politics, why we've been so slow to elect women, I think that still would have happened, and I think he could have won as an independent.
We'll never know.
Exactly.
It was out
so
there
it's a great
as a
hypothesis.
Yes.
But it could have happened because of your point. 70, 80% approval. A lot of Baker Democrats. And this is a guy who ran and lost the first time. And so, they have nowhere to go.
Yeah. And that would have been an interesting government.
Maybe
this place to end it.
Oh my God, I would have loved it.
Hypothetical, podcast hypotheticals. The Baker as an independent.
Baker Healey deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, as the GOP nom.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to end there. Think on that. Chew on that, because we could be talking about that the entire summer and fall, and we're not. And that's what we're talking about today with Erin O'Brien, who's the professor of political science at UMass Boston, though who's on sabbatical. So
heck yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to talk. I do want to throw in one sponsor. Today's podcast brought to you by Boston Cream Cheese. Boston Cream Cheese, because who made Philadelphia the frickin' home of cream cheese?
That I don't know.
Couldn't help myself.
Big topic. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been fantastic to have you and to steal the podcast for a week. Maybe future podcasts with me as well. We shall see. Enjoy yourselves. Think on the Baker-Healey deal race.